Hello, welcome again to the Catalyst channel. And here today I have my newest friend, Philo, and we're
Whoop,
just going to
whoop.
talk about, yes, we're just going to talk about whatever we feel like talking about. So what do we feel like talking about, Philo?
What's on my mind is just topics that is going to elevate people's human experience. So a lot of things that I study, around the idea of unlocking people's dormant potential within. So when we unlock, our potential within, we get to experience the best quality of life possible. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of us are seeking, whether we are conscious of it or not, a better life and of some sort. That's why I think a lot of people even do, maybe habits that are counterproductive because they're in a way looking for a better life, even if it's not the right avenue. So I just like to, focus on certain things and shine light. That's like the whole premise of what I talk about is shining awareness. That's why my YouTube channel is Philo's Lantern, because it's more about just shining that awareness, shining that light onto the power that's within all of us. So yeah, in a nutshell.
That's a big nut.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever watch what was that movie with the I think his name was Scrat. Oh, the Ice Age movies, and he was always like
Oh
trying
yeah. Oh yeah.
to get
Yeah.
that big giant acorn, like
Yeah.
that's
I
about
haven't seen a lot of movies, but I've seen that movie. I used to
how
love Ice Age. Yeah, that squirrel, it was a squirrel, right? That squirrel's
I
hilarious.
don't know, he had big buck teeth. Oh.
Yeah. I gotta watch that movie again.
Yeah, I think I'm inspired to do that. So Philo's Lantern is your YouTube channel. And
Exactly.
when you say lantern, tell me more.
So when I say lantern, it's more about like I think that for us to basically create more production in our life or just become a better person, all starts with awareness. So when I think of the lantern, I think of the light of awareness. So when we shine the light or the lantern, typically we use a lantern in darkness, and that could be unconsciousness. So shining that light of awareness will allow us to uncover certain patterns that are maybe beneath our awareness and allow us to shine light, bring awareness, consciousness to it, so thus that we could empower ourselves and let go of a lot of this old conditioning that keeps us in these loops, keeps us in these old patterns that doesn't allow us to experience, the best quality of life that we all really deserve and that we all are capable of, once we do have more awareness. So that's my whole concept of the lantern. And also too, it also stems from like I think I got inspired by the tarot card, the Hermit. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's more about going within, and a lot of I like to call it my life's work and the things that I'm super passionate about is inner work, inner awareness. And I think I'm pretty sure you're familiar with, the way out is inside. So just by going in to our unawareness most of the time, we could, really unlock our fullest potential. So this is where the whole concept of the lantern comes from, where it stemmed from.
Okay, so awareness. Um, shining light,
Hmm.
seeing the illusion of darkness, I guess.
Yeah, the illusions that we hold on to, the false beliefs, anything that we believe that's not a real reflection of who we truly are, you know, which is the God force within. Or like Joseph says, happiness, joy, peace, fulfillment, bliss, which is very, very, very well articulated. That's why, it's a good way to reiterate that type of expression.
Okay, so when you're saying Joseph, you're talking about Joseph Rodriguez,
Yeah,
where
exactly.
where we met in
Yeah,
his group there, and been having a lot of fun chatting back and forth and sharing different things and learning from each other. It's the school
for
community,
sure.
right? So maybe
Exactly.
we'll make sure to put your YouTube channel in there, and we'll put the school
Beautiful.
channel in there, and then also probably the mastermind group information in there as well as we're going along. So how, where, when, how did your journey into this information come about?
My journey in this information, I've always been like intuitively intrigued to like understand more of the deeper mysteries of life. I think one thing about me is that mysteries always intrigued me, you know, and I think as a child, like I didn't like to read at all. And it's funny because my mom, like I found this one book that was about these like kids that would unlock mysteries or solve mysteries. And it was like one of the only books that I would like to read, and I think it all stem from that want to understand mystery, you know? And I think as I got older into my adulthood, that evolved into me wanting to understand the mysteries of life, you know? And then as I got older, I wasn't so dialed into looking for answers within, but I knew I wanted to unlock my fullest potential or basically take my potential to its limit. And as I started to step up and do different things, like I tried to do real estate for a while, I seen a lot of inner blocks, you know? And I was doing a real estate venture, and I was lightly into self-improvement, but it was all more about external self-improvement, you know, like working out, better habits, but more of like external habits, not really going into the mind per se, you know? And when I found all these blocks with the real estate thing and the real estate venture that I ended up doing, it was with my brother, it ended up falling through. And then after we ended up partying and going our own ways, I felt like it was a call for me to go within because I knew there was something that was beneath my awareness that was preventing me from really excelling, you know, really stepping into my confidence. And once I was able to go into my own lane and do my own thing, I started to just seek more information. And then not only that too, but at the time, this was like 2021, my brother and I are very similar. And my brother was also seeking things how to self-improve too. And he started getting into things like Joe Dispenza and Neville Goddard and things like that. And since I was already kind of aware, I used to talk about certain things like even way before this, like 2017, about vibration and energy, you know, because I was already kind of intrigued about certain things like that. So when my brother started going down this route and he started telling me what he was learning, it already piqued my interest because I already had like a very, you know, general foundation of that type of knowledge. Plus, it touches on things like mystery, you know? So after he started expressing certain things and I went on my own way, I started getting into more of the inner work and I started learning about just how the mind works, going deeper into the subconscious mind. So I started reading Psycho-Cybernetics. Are you familiar with that book?
I've heard of the book, but there's my cat. Kitty. The real cat.
The real cat, the real star of the show.
Yeah, not the anime cat right
Yeah.
there. His name's Noodle.
Oh, that's a cute name. That's a cute
Thank you.
name.
Yeah, it's because he lets you do anything with him. He's like a
Oh,
noodle.
I see. That's perfect.
He is. Yep. So, wow, that's I'm pretty new to this information.
Yeah,
So I definitely don't go back to 2017 or 21, but more like maybe 22, 23 or something like that.
I see.
And and I was never drawn to it at all. I was so physically focused
Mhm.
and doing focused and accomplishing focused and um, achievement of focused and the next rung or the next whatever focused. And that anybody who spoke like this was like, I humored them, but I was just like,
You're like, right.
good luck with that, I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't not like you, but Well, actually, I can't say that. It's kind of funny because, well, they kind of, I felt like there was something wrong with them. For one,
Yeah, I
I
get
was
you.
like, okay, you can't touch it, taste it, smell it, feel it, but you are very like convinced by this or whatever, and so I definitely was very, like I said, outward kind of thing. And I think I would say the happenings of like 2020, not wanting to give that any more airtime in particular, but if I was going to say like a catalyst to
Hmm.
being, say, where I am today. And that I'm actually focused more so on the inside than well, a little bit more so every day, focusing on
Right.
the inside more and taking more ownership of my inner thoughts, my inner beliefs, my inner expectations, than I ever did before, or ever, because I never did. I never did
Right.
before, ever. So yeah, so but super appreciative of your share of where you started. But what I've noticed, so when we're talking about like Dispenza, Eckhart Tolle was like my first introduction
Mm,
to movies playing on in your mind and
for
conversations
sure.
having in your mind. Eckhart Tolle was my first introduction to that, and that blew my mind. That putting that awareness on that, like on that was because at first, I don't even remember why I was listening to it. I got it as an audiobook. I do not remember why. And maybe I found him to be soothing, but didn't know why. But I found him to be soothing and irritating at the same time. Same with Joseph. I found him to be soothing and irritating at the same time, until I actually heard. But I gave it a shot. And so Eckhart Tolle, he talks about it. Joe Dispenza, Esther Hicks. Those are like some big ones for me, which have said like suffering or a calamity or something big happening in our life forces us to go in and
A
start
thousand
looking like
percent.
you're looking, and that all of them have said at some point as I'm listening to them that you don't have to wait until the suffering comes.
Right.
You can do it without the suffering. As a matter of fact, we recommend that, which
For sure.
also comes to like what Joseph shares about you can do things the flow-based way. So he kind of his whole channel's all about that in his book. Was it Flow-Based Way to $1 Million or something? I can't remember the
Yeah.
exact title. And so you can do it the flow-based way or you can do it the struggle way. And they all recommend just flow. Just
Right.
and that there's nothing really on the outside to be done. It's all on the inside. That's kind of where I'm at. Like,
For
what?
sure. I
What?
think all of us intuitively seek like a flow-based life. Like even if you think about this, like if you ever met somebody, like a new friend or something, and the conversation was natural and it seems like, I feel like I've known this person for a while. And typically what this person is experiencing is a lot of flow-based synergy, and a lot of an energy that's aligned. So I think intuitively we already seek that because once we feel that emotion or feel that experience, we get some sort of like bliss, is I guess I could describe it that way, or like, generally like when an athlete is in the zone, they're not typically all in their head calculating all the moves, they're such in a flow-based state that things come natural. So I think it is that reflection of our probably our true nature. So it's just another way to look at us subconsciously, intuitively desiring to align with our real identity, you know? So
It's
that's
like
how I like to look at that too.
I can appreciate that. To me, it feels like home. To me, it feels like home when I'm when I feel, I guess, the most myself, or it feels like home. Like if the best way I could explain it would be like if I was a soul, right? And then I don't know, all my this is kind of where I'm at right now because I'm trying to understand it. If I was a soul, so energy, right? And
Right.
um, and um, and I was had no physical experiences to say disappoint me or make me feel separated from all that is because I was a soul with all the other souls or energy with all the other energy. Then I wouldn't feel sadness. I would be in my natural state. And so I feel like bliss or flow, or that feeling of fulfillment when we you know feel that way is for me, it's like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to feel, and I have the ability to feel this way in this body if I only would allow myself to know, understand, and believe this, that I am a soul. I'll never forget the day my little mind was blown. I don't know why it took me so long to wake up to this or whatever, but it was like one day I remember I was in my garage and my little mind was blown because I'm like, I'm a soul. I'm a soul in this body, but I think that not my whole entire soul is in this body. But I feel like my soul energy or whatever is in this. I'm like, oh my gosh. Um, wow, that's amazing. And I think that knowledge of having a soul, being a soul, having connection still to say all that is, and when I feel that is when I feel the most home. I think that's why we crave it. This is my thinking. This is where I'm coming, like where I'm coming to. I think that's why we crave healthy, loving, say, relationships, because when we partner up like that, it feels like heaven. It feels like home, that connection, the love, which from what I'm understanding is like the biggest thing there is, even maybe the only thing there is just in um refusal or belief or conditioning that makes us feel like there is a lack of love, I guess.
1,000%.
So for me, where I'm at now is, as we're talking about this, is the feeling of flow is when I allow for the memory of, or the feeling of what my soul feels like outside of this body to flow in this body, and in that faith and trust and knowing. That's the
For sure.
best way I can explain it, and that I am already fulfilled, and I'm already, I mean, how can you get more perfect than a soul, right? Who just happens to have a body. I haven't explained it all yet, but like I haven't figured it all out yet.
Right.
But I think that's why we crave, or feel alone or feel separated, is because somehow we forgot that we were a soul, a perfect soul connected to all the other souls and all that is, and that somehow by having these senses, these five senses that we have, and the experiences that we've had throughout our life, has somehow convinced us to not go inside and remember, like you've said, but to be afraid of the consequences of what we've been, say, physically taught or programmed to do something to prevent the sadness or get something
For
to.
sure.
What are your thoughts? I know that was a lot.
No, that was very well described. Yeah, so I think just the world, conditions us to continuously look externally, continuously look outside of ourselves. Even if you look at the way that people market products, you know, if you have this watch or you have this cologne, then you will be attractive, you know, and a lot of it is playing on people's lack, you know, playing on people's unconsciousness because, like you said, typically when we know who we truly are, which is already fulfilled, then we can align with that. But if we're not aware of that, we're going to continuously be influenced to look to the external for that fulfillment, especially when the world is continuously enticing us to look outside of ourselves, you know? You might feel good, like a lot of people get caught up in the trap that I might have a certain amount of wealth, but then you see the neighbor have a better car or whatever, you know what I mean? And now you feel like you have a lack and now you need that external thing. You know, that's a very like superficial type example, but a lot of us get caught up in these types of looking to the external continuously, you know? And I think that's why I'm so passionate about this work is because this is the answer is really inside, you know? The answer to the happiness, to the fulfilling life is really understanding of your true identity. You know what I mean?
A
So,
soul, perfect soul in this
yes, a
body.
soul,
Have an
exactly. Just gonna
experience,
go
having a human
1000%.
experience.
Exactly. And
And
I think all these negative things or like dark things on the external, you know, or like if you want to call it like they're all just ways for us to challenge and be provoked to look within. Because imagine if everything was goody two-shoe, we wouldn't have maybe an something to entice us to look within or entice us to look for answers somewhere. You know, so I think a lot of these the suffering or a lot of these maybe things that we go through in life or even how the world is maybe set up not for you to look within per se. It's all just a part of the hero's journey. It's like a movie, you know, when you watch a movie, what are the best movies? If you watch a movie that somebody goes through the whole movie and everything is great and good, and then it ends, you're kind of like random. But if you watch a movie and this person goes through the trials and doesn't know who he is and then comes out at the end of the day as Spider-Man after all the things, you know, that makes like one of the most grand stories going through all those dips and valleys and those highs and lows, you know, and all the hero's journey to find self. So I think on the surface level, it might look like negative things, but it's all designed for our growth, you know? I think that's why a lot of people, like you were mentioning earlier, we don't have to go through trials per se to start looking for answers. We can find answers now, but a lot of times people get caught in their comfortable patterns, which is understandable that they need almost something to smack them upside the head, metaphorically, to get them to start doing something different. You know what I mean?
not be like in just a habitual, repetitive, when we talk about patterns of I get up at this time, the bathroom is this many steps away, the toilet seat is this far down. I get out of bed on this side of the bed. I go make my coffee. I
Hmm.
get in my car. I take this path to work. And when I get there, like I'm maybe even thinking, okay, when I get there, I'm probably going to see this person and they're going to be like that, or there's going to be this, what kind of trouble is going to be there when I get there? And or whatever, what other things could I be doing other than this, or how can I prevent this from happening or make this go better? But having the same conversations with the same thoughts, driving the same thing, and then go home and eat the same whatever 7 dinners you might eat in a week or whatever in
For
rotation,
sure.
and put on do the same thing, for a bedtime routine. And I think that's actually, probably for some people, and I can see how they'd be like, that sounds like heaven.
Yeah, for sure.
No surprises, no. But so I think people can spend 10, 20, 30, 30, a whole lifetime in a pattern, and just doing the same thing and wondering why nothing is changing, and why they feel like something maybe is missing. Maybe some people don't feel that way. I don't know. I can't speak for the whole, like,
Right.
human race, but um, I feel like you can let that, that can happen. But I feel like If I'm thinking about it now, when we talk about something happening, like for your, for your deal, it was with your brother and yours venture that kind of like shook you up, and you're like, I gotta look inside here. And then for me was like a particular space and time, and that shook me up, and then had me kind of looking around. Maybe that happens for everybody.
For sure.
Maybe that's why it happens.
I
It's
agree.
to wake a person up. I know Eckhart Tolle said he was like, some people would say to him, oh, okay. So some people would say to him, I've had your book on a shelf for 7 years, and I picked it up and I looked at it and I put it back on the shelf, and then I picked it back up 3 years later, and he's like, oh, you just needed to suffer a little more too.
Mhm. To be
And
enticed,
so I'm not looking to do that anymore. I'm
for
not
sure.
looking to suffer anymore. I think I'm looking to. I was thinking about the Matrix the other day.
Hmm.
So Neo, right? He finds out he's the one, right? And they end up downloading all these combat things into him. And there's a moment where he says, I know Kung Fu. And he never once fought that. Like he was like, it just downloaded and he accepted it. It wasn't like it took him a month or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years to be like, I'm a kung fu master, actually.
Right.
But him believing that he was the one took him all the way, when we talk about like hero's journey, all the way to the end.
100%.
We actually had to die, and then love brings him back. Trinity's love for him brings him back, and then he believes. And I feel like maybe we're doing the same kind of journey, maybe that he is
1,000%.
in some way. And
For
it
sure.
could be, as Joseph would say, it could be flow based and just, I am already everything. And I don't need to do anything to be everything I desire because I already am all that. I'm fulfilled.
100%.
Ta-da! And take years and years and years to try that on for size and then believe it, or just be like, you know, I already am. I already
For
am.
sure.
Yeah, it's just up to me to see
And
that. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
just to use that reference, you just like set up a perfect reference. Like we were talking about earlier about how a lot of us look externally for answers, right? So when Neo goes and sees the Oracle, he's basically showing up and he's like, am I the one? And she's like, he's looking to her for answers, right? And thinking that she's gonna give him answers. And she basically just spins questions back to him and saying, are you the one? And he's like, I don't know. And that's why she basically turns around and points at the sign that says, that's Latin for know thyself. And then when she asks him if he's the one, he doubts it. So she basically says, you're not the one because since he doesn't know it, he's not it. Until he knows it, then he is it. But she allows him to unlock that and find that within himself. She doesn't give him the answers. And that's us as
She said you
Neo
still
when
gotta
we're,
figure something else. You still have
yeah,
something to figure out, I think, or something like that. She's like, you still need to figure something out. Very vague. I wouldn't have
yeah.
picked up on that myself. I'd have been like, okay, lady, great oracle.
Exactly. I'm not the one. That's why
Right.
she's like, yeah, basically you're not the one. And so that's why he ends up believing that. But really what he's trying to look for answers externally instead of going within. And she's just basically provoking him to look for the answers within him. She's just a catalyst.
Right.
She's just a catalyst for him to become aware of his own power. And I love that. That's so like poetically done well throughout that movie
Yeah.
because a lot of us go to different psychics or different things for answers when we are already the psychic within, if you want to say that. You know what I mean? We have all the answers. We just have to learn how to listen to that small, still voice, listen to our intuition. develop a relationship with our real identity by doing the inner work, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah, I love The Matrix. The Matrix is like, honestly, I feel like that a lot of these movies, this is just my perspective, a lot of these movies are designed for to hint at our, a lot of us look at these movies externally like, oh, they're just entertainment, guns and stuff. But a lot of it too, if you have an awareness, they're all talking about you a lot of times, you know, the hero's journey like we spoke about. And there's just a lot of esoteric symbolism in that movie, you know, just like Trinity, you know, his partner Trinity, which is playing on the Trinity, mind, body, soul, you know, energy, frequency, vibration. So it's just really interesting. I love, that's one of my favorite movies. I'd say it's a top movie for sure. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
I watched it again after I kind of came into that like analogy and that he could have just accepted he was the one and then skipped all of that and
Mhm.
just been like, oh, I'm the one. I'm it. I'm fulfilled. I don't need anything. I am everything I need. I don't need anyone else. Ta-da! Short movie though.
Yeah, exactly.
Short movie
Exactly.
though. I don't know if you can hear the leaf blower guy outside. He's
No, I can't.
all right, good, good. So the
Yeah, that's
canceling is
good.
working. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Um, yeah, so that's kind of where I don't know. It's kind of where I'm at, but I'm appreciative of others like you that I can talk about these things with and eh, yeah, and in a way, right, don't feel so alone, right, in the
Right.
thinking. And so there's that. Plus, I just find it, maybe I like a mystery too. I do love figuring
Mhm.
things out. So so
For
maybe I'm
sure.
a big fan of a mystery as well. And I can't, the thing is when I spoke earlier and I was like, um, the the physical world was where all of my thoughts were. And that anybody who did like yoga, I didn't understand yoga. I didn't understand, like you brought up the tarot cards, and I would have
Mhm.
Neville Goddard, Joe Dispenza, Eckhart Tolle, Esther Hicks. Oh, and there's a new girl now that I really like. She's on YouTube.
The
Kate,
Alchemist.
Kate Clark.
Mm.
She's dialed in. Like she's very
I
dialed.
gotta look her up.
Yeah, so I'll put her link here as well. And I've been listening to her lately, and she's really has she has a way of explaining things in terms of where our awareness is, where our thoughts are, what we're attracting, what we're experiencing, why we're experiencing it, how long we'll experience it,
Sure.
um, and how to, set intentions and things like that. She's really, really dialed in. And for me, it's there's like a ring, like for me, when I hear say a truth that resonates, say with me, then I can feel it all the way to the core. And with her,
Sure.
I'm like, okay, all right. Yeah, strong command of the information for sure. So,
Yeah, and even if we look at like a lot of these things, we could basically like zoom in or like not even look at it from a very esoteric, abstract perspective.
mhm.
One of the main things that I focus on is shadow work. Are you familiar with shadow work?
She speaks of shadow work, and I have heard shadow work, and she speaks of shadow work, and I kind of got lost on a tangent. Was things have happened in my life that
Mhm.
were not of a physical explanation. Um, I couldn't do it. It was like that's unexplainable. That's unexplainable. That's unexplainable. And so that started me looking for the information. And as I started looking for the information, it started coming to me into my awareness. And in the form of those people that I spoke of, like Eckhart Tolle, Joe Dispenza, Esther Hicks, and Joseph Rodriguez and
Sure.
Kate Clark, and so oh, and Neville Goddard. Um, it came to a point where I could no longer um, accept what was just physically around me, that there was definitely more. Um,
Right.
so,
Yeah, because if we look at like shadow work, we don't like it doesn't even really have to do too much with, like I said, like a lot of these abstract esoteric concepts. But even if you just, not you, but all of us as a whole understood shadow work, it will really unlock all the power within you, whether you understand metaphysics or not. Because shadow work really in a nutshell is like understanding the subconscious mind, basically.
mm-hmm.
And basically when we're growing up, our subconscious mind is completely open. And if you're already familiar with this, our subconscious is 95% of our mind. You know, me and you talking right now to each other, we're only operating within the conscious mind, which is 5%. So we get these programs and these beliefs about the world from our experience growing up. And then once we solidify these experiences within the subconscious, they get reflected out into our outer reality. And our outer reality is always mirroring what's going on in our subconscious.
Which is
So, for example,
wild. Which is
which is wild.
wild. It's so
Yes.
wild, but I've seen evidence of it in my
And then,
own experience. I've
for
seen
sure,
it's wild.
for sure. And this is where a lot of these generational curses come from. Because think about this, if your parents have a certain pattern because their parents taught them a certain perspective about the world, they're going to put that perspective onto you. And when you're a child, especially before the age of 7, your subconscious mind is completely open. That's why, like I've said before, you could tell a child that there's a, guy in a red suit that slides down the chimney even though he's 200 plus, and he brings presents for the whole world. You know what I mean? And we believe it. And
Yeah.
this can permeate to believing certain beliefs that are disempowering, So, like for example, and this is why I feel like this work, I argue, is one of the most top ways that you could bring healing to
Shadow
yourself is
work.
shadow work, or like,
Okay.
maybe there's another way to say it that's
Yeah.
understood right away as you say it, but inner work, inner child healing work a lot of times. Because think about this, let's say that you grow up like a man or a woman grows up with a parent and the parent is never there for them, or they always left them in the dust. And then as this man or woman grows up into an adult, they have these beliefs about that other person. Like let's say a woman, right? A woman has a dad that always is leaving her growing up. Now when she grows up, she might have this belief that men are this way. And that belief is stored within her subconscious. And then she unknowingly attracts men in her life to replay those patterns of her dad walking out on her. And then she ends up saying, you see, all men are the same. They're all cheaters. Or, you could extract this to a man and a woman too as well.
Sure.
But in this reference, I'm talking, specifically in this case, a woman. And then she is correct that not necessarily all men are like this, but all the men that she's attracting. But
Mhm.
if she understands about these subconscious patterns that are playing in the background underneath her awareness, she can bring life to that, dissolve those unconscious beliefs that are disempowering, and instill new beliefs that are going to create different reality experiences. It's going to attract men that are more healthy. And if these people don't break out of these patterns by the age of 35, a lot of these beliefs get solidified within the subconscious and they become extra hard to unwire. So this is where you get the idea you can't teach old dogs new tricks, because they're so conditioned in the subconscious, reinforcing these beliefs for years on years on years, that it becomes really hard to unwire and untether yourself from these disserving beliefs. And this
Because
is why this
keep getting proof that it's true.
Yes. Yes, you're in the feedback loop over and over again.
Keep
And
getting
that
proof.
person is correct that reality is that way, but it's only playing in that way of that experience. So this is why it's so vital. And not only that too, but this is even more vital that if we don't do the inner work for ourselves, okay, that's one thing. We go through life maybe not having a fulfilling experience, but if you pass those same ideologies onto your children, they're going to suffer. So if we can't do this for ourselves, we can have more of an incentive to make ourselves better for our children, understand this information, because everything that we subject them to, all these ideas that we subject them to, are going to set their lives up in a certain way. So this is the key and the gateway to fulfillment of self and breaking generational curses. This is why, like, I'm so passionate about this type of work. Yeah, that's it. That's in another nutshell.
Well, so yeah, a big nut.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So, okay. So I'm very, very new to the idea of shadow work,
Hmm.
and just now kind of grappling with the subconscious mind, and then the subconscious mind in loops, and then say pattern recognition, reticular something, the reticular system,
Hmm.
which
Activating,
recognizes,
yeah,
yeah, the activating reticular system, which is if you hypothetically, I don't know. Okay, I'll just say hypothetically had a bad experience with a dog. They bit you or
right.
something, or they were just scary to you or something, or jumped on you and knocked you over. I don't know. Something happened with the dog. Then you might have other experiences with other dogs throughout your life that dogs are bad and dogs are scary. And then you might end up being around dogs with that energy.
Okay.
Maybe you start running and their instinct is to chase, and then you're like, see,
Okay.
dogs are
Hmm.
bad. They hate me. What? And then the next thing you know, you got your kid with you, and you're like, wow, the dogs are chasing us. So I'm starting to learn about how that how we see things and perceive things can actually shape, draw to create experiences that we can have as we was so hypothetically, let's take the girl that the dad left and that kind of thing, and then let's say we'll take one guy. Okay, so we take one guy. So you have one girl that's had this happen to her, and then you have one girl. So same dude, but two girls. One girl that this has happened to, and then one girl that has never happened, had a great father-daughter experience or whatever. Are you saying that that the one that had those experiences subconsciously and had expectations and beliefs with that guy could turn that relationship into experiencing that with that person, where a girl that maybe never had that happen could in the same with the same person not ever have that happen?
Yes, I mean maybe it doesn't work out maybe in that to like absolute degree, but
Right, right.
generally yes, because it just depends to what's stored within the subconscious and our self-image, how we feel what we deserve, what a healthy relationship looks like.
Okay.
So if those instances played a big impact onto beliefs in their subconscious mind, then yes, it will most likely work out in those types of ways. But
Okay.
there's a lot of little nuances in between our life growing up that
Sure.
whether it plays out with our parents, even though our parents have the most influence and chance onto our subconscious mind, we get beliefs throughout, with our peers and different other experiences too. But generally, yes, that if those experiences shape the beliefs that are within the subconscious, then they're going to probably reattract those things. And if you think about this, we're reattracting those experiences so that we do suffer. So one day we finally like, all right, I'm tired of these men, I'm tired of these women, I'm tired of getting stepped on.
Right.
What can I do? More self-love, understand the self more. So it's all a play for us it's an invitation to heal,
Okay.
generally.
Okay, so it's there for us to look at so that we can see what the results of our thoughts are, so that
Yeah,
we could we get to go inside and shine our awareness on it and see it for what it is showing
for
us,
sure.
and then change our thoughts in relationship to that
Yes.
and letting
Really, really, it's really
I don't know.
changing the thoughts and the beliefs with ourselves.
Okay.
Because if we change that with ourselves, then everything else changes. For example, like if you change the relationship with yourself,
Okay.
everything else in the outer world will reflect that. Because if you think about this too, if somebody grows up with a lot of self-respect and they have a strong self-image, a healthy self-image, they're not going to most likely stand for a man or woman that doesn't reflect their worth. So they're not even going to be attracted to those things because their self-image doesn't align with that. So the more that we shape our own selves and the way that we look at ourselves, because our self-image dictates our whole life. So if we start to revamp our self-image, we with that will come those beliefs, because we can't revamp our self-image but have crappy beliefs, they're directly in alignment, they're directly correlated. So as we start to heal ourselves, create a better self-image, we have better beliefs within the subconscious that are going to reflect things in our outer reality. And then we might not settle for certain things that we used to once before because we have a better self-love. We're more centered with and know who we are. So this is the idea behind it generally.
I like that. And you could, I mean, because some people will spend like, say, years and years and years in therapy or a whole entire life in therapy,
Sure.
or I need to work on myself. I need to fix myself. There's something wrong with myself. And, or even shadow work forever and ever and ever. And I
Hmm.
don't know how deep it goes, but I think there is, like, I feel like there is, or sense there is, or whatever, is that there is the opportunity to just be like, I don't necessarily, I think there is an option to just accept that you are worthy, you are perfect, you
For
don't need
sure.
any fixing, and
For
you're
sure.
perfect just the way you are. And if you were able to do that, like Neo just being like, I know kung fu, it could be
Yeah.
just like, I know I'm perfect. I know that I don't have to fix anything. I know that I'm fulfilled the way that I am. I don't need to need anything or need anyone, or something to that effect. You could slip past that and be that
A
person.
thousand percent.
Yes? Okay. All right.
Yes.
Because I feel
Because
like,
there's a lot of I have a YouTube video about this, that the dark side of healing is what it's called, because a lot of us get trapped and addicted to healing. What do I gotta heal? What okay, I healed a little bit more. What book now do I gotta read? And we don't realize that we get trapped in these loops. A lot of times too, we don't even have to understand where this pattern come from. We don't have to draw out a map and say, oh, this is because when I was 5, I got rejected. I mean, yeah, if you do understand that, it definitely helps bringing clarity onto those patterns.
right.
But we don't even need to do that. We
What do
can
we
really
need to
just
do?
we can
How
learn
would
how to
you do it?
process our we can learn how to process our emotions in the moment. So, like, for example, if something's coming up in the moment, it's kind of like the modality that I love this by Joseph Rodriguez that says,
Okay.
once you know who you truly are, we can understand that, let's say there's a belief that's coming up that I'm being rejected. And what does that mean? If I'm being rejected, it means that I'm not worthy per se. That's what the false belief is saying, right?
I like
And
that.
once
Yeah.
you know who you truly are, you can examine that belief and know that's not who you are. Allow that emotion to come into your body and feel that unworthiness for a second, but don't identify with it. Just observe it.
Okay.
Because think about this too. What we suppress, tries to continuously express itself, So we have to let that emotion flow through us and play out, but we can bring clarity and conscious awareness that that isn't who we are. And most of the time when we just observe that emotion for a second, but standing in our truth of our fulfillment, that emotion starts to dissipate and that old belief will start to lose power. And as the more that we do that over and over again, the more that we get strength. So this is how we can even simplify the healing process without going through all these different modalities of, going back to the past and understanding all these things.
Right,
Those
right.
things can just be they can be tools to make the process easier, but it's not necessary because the conscious mind a lot of times, the ego will overcomplicate everything. Oh, in order for me to make this sale, I have to say this perfect script and I have to do all these techniques. When a lot of times, if you just align with your inner flow, the things will work out on their own. So the conscious mind, majority of the time or a good amount of time, will overcomplicate a lot of processes. So, just tying back that context into what we were saying is that the healing work doesn't necessarily have to be over complex. You know, there's different modalities to do this, but even just being aware of the emotion arising and knowing who you are in the moment and learning how to process that emotion can be just enough, because we're always going to be challenged. It's never going to be like, okay, I did enough journaling. Now I'm never going to feel not self-worth. I'm never going to feel feared. Those things are going to continuously come up. We just get stronger and we get more wise about going about dealing with them in the moment to realign and stay aligned with our true nature, you know?
I love that. And did you d did you do Joseph Rodriguez's subconscious mind program?
Actually, I'm doing it right now.
What do you think of
Mhm.
it?
I love it.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
love it.
I love it. I
I'm
think
already aware of a lot of these things, but
I
the way that it's broken down in the step-by-step process is just very well constructed to like really bring strength to understanding how to dissolve disempowering conditioning and beliefs. So I love it. I love it a lot. And I like it too because it's very proactive. It makes you define your vision. It makes you define your old beliefs. It actually gives you homework to do so that way you can get down to put on your gloves and get down on the nitty gritty on how to do this. Because a lot of times I would just do these things on the fly, like, okay, this, all right, and then move on. But actually, when we go down into the mine and into the cave, we could actually really learn how to master the subconscious, you know? So I love it. And in the smallest, in the sense, I love it.
That's awesome. That sounds
I'm
so.
curious, how
Mhm.
did you get introduced to Joseph Rodriguez?
Oh, okay. So thank you for asking. During that time frame that I was talking about or whatever, I started, like I said, I had some experiences that I couldn't quite explain. So I ended up going on YouTube looking for different things. I was like,
Hmm.
what is this? And I believe he showed up on my feed. And then I tried listening to him and I was like, I could hear him, but I found him to be irritating. Like I wanted to understand everything that he was saying because he seemed so sure about what he was
Hmm.
saying. And I could hear different tiny little truths, I guess, or but at the same time, it was like so, I'm just going to use the word whack that
I get you.
I couldn't like um because I had been such a physical world kind of person, I had never, ever, ever entertained esoteric anything,
Okay.
I'm not going to say I didn't never read the Bible or study, and that I did. But
Gotcha.
any of the other things. So I would try listening to him like every couple of months or something like that. And then one day I was listening to him and I was like, wow. I hear him. I hear what he's saying. Wow, okay.
Hmm.
And then I just, had this notion, that he was going to be a part of my life in some way. And then
Right.
boom, he started the mastermind group. And then I joined it. And then in there's other people with the same kinds of questions on this same mystery journal like journey that you were speaking of, all kind of seeking. And I found him to be so grounding and
Mhm.
loving and kind and accepting and non-judgmental, not shaming, not condemning. I see you, I got you. And being able to go into his mastermind group and then find other people that were looking in the same way I was, and then supportive and have made great friendships um, and everything that goes from that. So that's how it started. And then he started this school and I'm like, well, I gotta check that out. So and then there's just a bunch of gosh, I think there's like 200 people in there all posting uplifting things, and it's about entrepreneurship, and people are sharing ideas and
Thousand percent.
concepts. Yeah. and he's posting there every day in ways that get recenter, realign, and also get me thinking like, okay, all right. So it's a good way to start every day because there's a post there every day and then
For sure.
different people contributing. So we're kind of all going in this school together, and that's how we
Yeah.
met. How about you?
Yeah, for sure. For me, it was during that time where like I just started getting more like instead of only looking to self-improvement externally, like doing certain things like making my bed every morning and stuff like that. I started looking within because I felt like I had an intuitive call. And it's funny because it's a really interesting story. My brother was the one who actually found Joseph Rodriguez because my brother, I think at the time, was trying to understand Neville Goddard. So he was looking
Oh,
at videos, and Joseph talks about Neville Goddard a lot. And he like found a video about him. And I remember one day we were going to this coffee shop that we really like on our way there, and we were listening to a Joseph Rodriguez video. This was like 2021.
okay,
And like this was like when I was like generally I knew very vaguely about these concepts, but I kind of already understood a little bit about the subconscious and stuff, so it wasn't so like abstract for me.
okay.
Um, but one of the things that he said that was very interesting that I don't know why really intrigued me was that people show up to act out the theater that's in your mind. People show up to act out the theater that's in your head. It's kind of like the whole concept of the things that are in your subconscious mind are going to get reflected out into your outer reality, and people are going to show up and it plays out as theater, as Joseph says.
Right, right.
So I thought that was really interesting because it made me think like, man, there's more to this life than just random circumstances or random events. There's something that I'm doing that I'm unaware of that I'm contributing to what's showing up in my reality. So it made me more like maybe like intuitively intrigued to understand the inner magician within. And I remember like after we had our coffee, we were driving on the way back after we listened to Joseph, and my brother was saying that he's like, you know what? Like we were talking about cars because we always have like a visionary. My brother and I always had this visionary thing, like we want to experience, all the good things in life per se. So my brother was talking about the car he wants, right? And he's like, you know what? I want an Audi R8. He's like, I want an Audi R8, but not just any Audi R8. He's like, I want the one around 2010. He's like the one in Iron Man. He's like the white one. And I swear to
Ah.
God, like 5 seconds after he said that, an white Audi R8 2010 blows by us like this, boom. And me and my brother look at each other like, what the? And it just reinforced that ideology that we just heard that things show up in your reality to play out the theater that's in your mind.
Right,
So
right.
that was like one of the catalysts for me understanding, like going into Joseph, understanding Joseph and really just getting into his teachings.
I
That's
love
cool,
that.
huh?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
I haven't even seen an Audi like that since then. That was the only time I haven't even seen an Audi R8 since then. So it was like definitely like a magical moment.
I do like
It was
Audi
really cool.
R8s. Yes, they're nice cars. Yeah, sharp.
Yeah. But
Wow.
one thing I wanted to touch on really quick is like I think I understand what you're saying maybe about Joseph about when you first heard him. I think a lot of us when we come from like not this type of understanding of these things, we look for answers right away. We want to go to somebody and tells us, look, this is what's going on with you. You need to do X, Y, and Z. It's kind of like the oracle, Neil going to the oracle. Am I the one? And she doesn't give him an indefinite answer besides you're not the one because you don't think you are. And I
Right,
think
right.
Joseph, sometimes I look at him kind of like guru-ish in that type of way because I've sent him to other people that I admire, and I think they can't like grasp right away because it's not that he speaks in riddles, but
Mm,
it's almost as if to a degree that you almost have to really digest and chew on these types of teachings to really start to understand. But once you do understand,
yes.
you really start to unlock a power within you.
Yeah.
So I think I've heard other people express similar things to you, like what your experience. I think for me, I was already a little bit oriented in these things, so it was easier for me to like continuously listen. But
Right.
it's almost like, the guru never tells you the direct answer. He gives you more riddles and more questions, and you're like, just tell me the answer. So that's sometimes how I look at him and his teachings. It's really funny.
He's
But it's
really,
really just to empower us. Because if we're just given the answers, we're not going to develop any skill.
Yes, as you're saying that, I'm thinking of a couple of things that he would say is like your way is the best way, so he's not going to
Yeah.
lead the way.
I'm
And
like, what does that mean?
yeah, I'm like,
What is
what?
this
What?
way has been sucking for me. What do you mean?
Your way is the best way. I don't understand. Tell me the way, Joseph. And or you intuitively know, like he refers to Steve Job.
Yeah.
Well, that's funny. And so the different things, that he says, um, yes, yes, he doesn't really give you answers. He gives you
Yes.
things to
Direct
make you,
answers. Yeah.
he gives you
Yeah.
things to make you think. Yeah,
Yes.
pointers.
Look within. Pointers.
He kind of points,
Beautifully said.
but not like it's right there, but it's right there.
Exactly.
But it's not right there.
It's in
But it
that
is.
direction. It's in that direction.
Yes, yes, yes. So yeah, and I think that's why I stayed connected to him is because of that. So one of the reasons, yeah.
Yeah.
He does know. I told him, I'm like, I used to think you were irritating, but now I can't not hear you. So and
What did he say? What did he say
uh
when you said that?
I think that I think that well I think he laughed if I remember correctly, and but I think he always appreciates honesty as well.
For
And
sure.
then I think later on someone else had said it, and then he was like, "Yeah, I've heard that before." But I think that's kind of when we talk
Hmm.
about frequency and that kind of thing, like, and that's
Mhm.
how I felt. I felt like I was let's say there's the radio station that's him or the what he's trying to explain, and then there's the radio station below, and it was almost like I was in between the two, and it was irritating
Mhm.
because I couldn't quite hear him, which is always irritating. You're always trying to tune more, and it
Yeah.
would me to tune more to that higher.
Mhm.
I was, to that higher frequency to be able
For
to
sure.
positive or more loving frequency, however you want to say it, to be able to hear him, I think.
Hear the static.
I think so. Yeah, there was a lot of static.
Yeah.
Oof,
Yeah.
oof.
Beautiful analogy, by the way. Beautiful analogy. Very well articulated.
Thank you. I've thought about these things.
I see. Yeah.
About these things. Like, so wow, this is wonderful. I feel like we should get together and have more conversations for
For
sure.
sure. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So, and we'll just go ahead and say here, he's going to share it on his channel. I'm going to share it
Yes.
on my channel. And so you'll see us in both places. And, so how do you feel, Philo? Do you feel like there's anything else that you would like to speak of before we part ways?
I
Or
mean, I think that's a good little preview to what's to come in the future.
so you feel fulfilled,
Yes, I do.
complete? Same. I feel
What
fulfilled.
about you, Kat? You too?
Yes, I feel fulfilled and complete. I do. I feel like this is great. It's a launching, a good launching point for future
1,000%.
conversations for sure. And I feel inclined to share that if anyone has any ideas for future conversations for us or otherwise,
I
to
love that.
put it down in the comment. We'd love to expand on or introduce, or if you have questions, we could come back on again and we could talk more. It could be lots
I
of great
love that.
fun. Yeah? Yeah.
I love that for sure.
Oh, where are you located? Like
I'm from San Diego, or I live in
Red San
San
Diego?
Diego.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm in
What about you?
Florida. Florida.
Are you
Yeah.
in Florida?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
The other California. The other
I
California on the other side.
right, right, yeah,
Yeah, the East Coast California.
yeah, I actually really enjoy California a lot. So yeah, we'll see what the future brings.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, I'm giving you a hug. So, yay! Until next time, my friend.
Okay, until next time, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on.
I appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a good day. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, you will.